Hello pandas and other scrap enthusiasts. On today's video I wanted to try something different. Really different. So I went out and bought almost 3,000 pounds of AC compressor motors. Because I want to know, how much can I make buying compressors to process them for scrap copper? Are we going to make a whole bunch of money? Or is this going to be a huge waste of time, materials, and gas? There's only one way to find out. However, I may have gotten a little overexcited. See, you're probably aware a vehicle has a total weight capacity, and although I do have a truck to use, my truck is a Ford Ranger, or similar, and 2,000 pounds is too much. 3,000 pounds is an accident waiting to happen. So the first thing I needed was a little extra help from a friend. And that help came in the form of a trailer, which was generously donated by a friend who didn't need it anymore. This was still basically at the upper limits of the capacity of both these pieces of equipment, but after an emotionally taxing ride home, we arrived safely. Now that I find myself staring down this absolute unit of a heap, I'm wondering again if I may have bitten off more than I can chew. It's been a while though since we had a good old scheme on this channel. This may be one of the best or one of the worst, but I'll tell you this, it's definitely the greasiest. At this point, we better just get started. I want to see if this torch can actually do the job, because last time I didn't have any oxygen. Honestly, parts of that make it seem easier, but mostly that just seemed like it took a whole lot longer. And now I've got a scalding hot pot of boiling oil. Alright, let's get real for a second. As fun as that is, my first priority is not which one is the most awesome, because if it was, that would be an obvious choice. But which one is faster? So, I've got two very similar, I couldn't find identical, compressors here, and I want to time myself to see which of these methods, either the torch or a 4.5-inch aluminum oxide abrasive cutting disc, which one is faster. For me, obviously a experienced machinist, welder, whatever, would be faster with the torch, probably. And an acetylene torch would be faster, but with the two tools that I have in front of me, which one is going to save me time? Let's find out. 7 minutes on the torch. That one took 8.5 minutes, but it wasn't really a fair fight because I was like not even 3 minutes in before I started fighting with this little thing that was in my way. Whew, that one is nasty. I'm gonna try one more. Okay. Okay, so it's faster by like a minute. This way definitely ends up with a lot more fiddling about, and I'm not calculating the time spent swapping out the blades, which apparently I can only get through like 2 of these with one blade, and the second one is a struggle, so I think it's actually kind of even. But this way I don't have, it's not all scorching hot and a burnt up mess inside, so, you know, there's that. Well, regardless of the method we decide to go with, there's a lot of these to get through, and I'm going to get started.
And after a few hours, we ended up with a pretty decent little pile. Then we got to pull the motors out of these things. And there's a couple things attaching them. We got to... So there's a bit attached to the casing. Freeze that up. We're starting a pile there. And then there's a couple bolts that are holding these things together. And that's all we wanted. Right there. Of the sweet coppery filling. I'll make a pile of those too. Leaving us with a pretty decent pile of copper wound motors. Now this is where last week's video came from, and I'm glad I explored a few different options as to which cutting wheels to use, because I do like these diamond blade ones. But it was not all smooth sailing. An old adversary reared its ugly head in the form of aluminum wound motors. I was hoping we wouldn't see them. I'm not surprised, but I am disappointed. If there's too many of these could really affect our ability to turn around our investment. They're basically worthless. Not to mention they represent a huge waste of time, so we're losing money twice over. But we've gone this far already, and there's no way to know until looking inside, so we soldier on. These small ones are not so bad, and before long, we had a pretty decent collection of number 2 copper windings going. But I wanted to check if there was any hidden treasure on these casings. See, the inside had a lot of these little copper tubes. The outer ones, non-magnetic, those are clearly copper, and we're going to want to keep those. These inside ones, though they may not look it, they're just regular steel. Copper-coated to prevent corrosion or something, maybe? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. We're not going to get copper price for them, so they gotta go. Now, a couple of them had some copper wound up on the inside of the casing. And I'm glad we didn't miss that, because that has some value. Yoink. These are going back from whence they came. Now we'll move on to these little cylindrical ones. It doesn't matter what order you do them in, but I'm just enjoying coming up with a system. And testing out this diamond blade, well, it really didn't work out. It's trying to take out way too much material, and it's really slow. So, it's back to the abrasive cutting wheels, at least for this part. There's a couple different ways to take these things apart. Personally, I like doing them like the Tetris Z blocks. I'll link my AC compressor video in the description and at the end, just in case anyone really wants to get into how to take these apart and which ones are worth more and that sort of detail. That's not what this video is about. Spent quite a few hours on these, and I'm not going to pretend it was fun the whole time. Found myself cutting away long into the night, to the joy of my neighbors, no doubt. But eventually I allowed myself some sleep so I could get up the next morning to this beautiful pile of copper wound motors. And we've made significant progress, pretty much just leaving the big ones now. And this was interesting. I hadn't seen one of these before. I'll show you what I mean. It does have some nice pieces of copper and brass on the outside, but then when cracking the thing open, it's strange. I'm pretty sure those are brass, but despite my best efforts, I couldn't find an efficient way to separate the brass from the steel. I didn't want to lose any more time on these things, so they were getting the boot. We're going back to these. This is the same as the previous one, but larger. And after a bit more work, all we had left were the 3 largest ones, the ones that I couldn't lift onto the table. I mean, like, I could, obviously. I just didn't feel like it. They're not even heavy. The first of the 3 was just a larger version of the ones that we'd done before. I had to take it apart upside down, which was strange, but yeah, same thing. Okay, it's a little different inside. It doesn't matter. These other 2, though, they were something special. And I really didn't want to do that. So much oil just spilled out onto the floor, and well, anyway, I had to get creative when figuring out how to cut these things open because they were attached in a few different places. I did eventually get this thing off, though, and got the cap off, and well, it didn't want to give up. That is cast aluminum, though, so eventually, through some cutting and some bashing, I managed to pull this thing out. At this point, I was not asking. But we got it. We got both of them. And it was well worth it. Those are the largest of the entire collection so far. What a beautiful collection. But before that, we are not going to be able to haul everything in one go. And, yeah, the trailer's kind of annoying. Figured we'd bring the steel in. Which... yeah. No, that's a pretty big pile of steel. But we made it safe and sound to the scrapyard. With a most proper squat on display. I wouldn't worry too much about what Thub's saying here. It was windy. It didn't really work out. All I'm saying is I asked to confirm, and they said yes. Prepared steel. We'll give you prepared steel for all of it, which was fantastic news. It was a fair bit of weight. And I do have a few pieces I'm throwing in the tin shred because they're clearly not prepared steel. And, you know, we ain't trying to take advantage. right, 1,775 pounds in steel delivered. That's 220 bucks. So slightly more than half of our initial cash investment. And that was the hard part. Now we get to do the fun part. Now I decided to start with the biggest ones first, eat the frog, so to speak. And as much as I love this diamond-coated blade, it doesn't quite have enough of a plunge to do the largest ones. So the reciprocating saw stepped in to fill in the gaps. We didn't have to use it too many times. And of course, these ones have a lot of tension, so cutting them in half was the best way to release. Well, okay, they're still a big pain in the butt. But that's just the way it goes. And the smaller ones were, of course, a lot easier. And bit by bit, we worked our way through. I tried to alternate between cutting and hammering because I didn't want to overwork either of the tools. And these smaller ones, just a dream. Relatively speaking, obviously. It might look like a big pain in the butt, and I'm not saying it's not, but this is way easier. It's a very low effort.
Wearing the stuff for this long.
It's a lot of friction. Anyway, there's some that are a lot easier than others, and I'm not sure if I can realistically clean the biggest ones out, at least not in time, because I'm trying to get this done. But most of these seem to be fairly straightforward. I've only found two that are really giving me trouble. So, I'm just going to go as fast as I can. And we got a couple hours till the place closes. So
I thought I was going to be in frame here. That's my bad. Let's move on. Well, there we are. Roughly 20 hours of labor later, we've turned nearly 3,000 pounds of AC compressors into 6 buckets full of clean copper windings. And the total number of aluminum ones, we only had 7 or 8 out of I don't know how many. I haven't actually counted how many we did. I will count them when I load them up into the truck tomorrow. It also costs us 58 abrasive discs to cut open all of them, and it would have been way more if we didn't have the diamond edge that to cut through all of the windings themselves. That saved a ton of time. That was way better than I realized. Totally worth it. But we would have gone through way too many grinding discs if we hadn't had that to do the soft stuff. Now, how much was it all worth? We gotta load everything up and find out tomorrow. This is easily the messiest scrap project yet. We've got, there's some piles on the floor that I haven't picked every single copper winding out of. I'm not going to yet, like I will. I won't just throw them out. And then there's a lot of copper dust. So we're just gonna throw that in the bin. And, and there's also a small bin of number 2 copper pipes. We're gonna bring those in as well. But the grease, the oil, the dust. We'll see if it's worth it. Oh, I am excited for this one. All of that work. I really hope it paid off. This was fun. It was fun. And there we are. Safe and sound. Not that I was worried about this one. The weight wasn't that bad. After loading up, running into the scrapyard, and unloading everything we made it home with, $1,000. that's a nice little stack of cash, but let's simplify the math here. Real quick, it was about 1,775 pounds of steel, and the total copper windings we brought in, 188 pounds. I haven't done the percentages. That's not what I'm focused on here. I'm just looking at the results of this experiment, how long it took and how much we made. So I wrote down the figures here, and I also forgot to bring in the bin of copper tubes that we cut off. That's roughly 10 pounds, so it's somewhere like 35 to 40 bucks. Remember, this is all Canadian. But our costs bring between our costs at like the gas and the sleeve cutting discs and the amount that we spent in the first place and the bit of fuel, the oxygen, the propane we used there, total profit was about 550 bucks. Now I estimated the hours that we spent at 20 hours processing, but if we also include the travel time, because I made 3 trips to the scrapyard, and there's gas involved there, well, at 20 hours, that means we made $27.50 an hour. Which is, well, it's what we made. But realistically, we spent 25 hours doing all of this stuff, and that comes out to $22 an hour. It's exciting that we turned a couple $100 into $1,000. That was great. It worked. But it also came along with significant amounts of wear on tools that we already had. My hammer drill was smoking there a couple times. I only paid $100 for it used, but I'll probably have to replace it in the near future, so that comes off the top. In addition, this little project produced a lot of garbage. Some big greasy pieces of cardboard, I got a big plastic tub, I've got a pallet, and a couple bins full of just plastic and junk that I have to throw out. So that's ours as well. All this to say, this experiment was fun, and I'm glad we did it, and I hope you enjoyed it. Was it worth it? Well, that's not really for me to say. Money per hour, not too bad. Probably won't do it again. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more like this. I had fun, and I've got a few more planned. Check out this video if you want to go more in depth as to which AC compressors are really worth doing, and this one if you want to see how I figured out which angle grinder wheels are really worth the time. Leave it better than you found it. Keep doing the thing.